All right. Eternal blessings. We are live. Let me just do some quick edits and then we're gonna go ahead and get going. Just hang tight for a minute. We will get that done. All right, hold on one sec. All right, almost there. All right. All right, I think we are good with the edits. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. That's good. We're going to try something tonight. I've never gone live on TikTok, so let me get that going. We'll try that, see how that goes. I'm not really crazy about the Instagram. Instagram is a lot of bullshit with that, but we'll try this TikTok thing tonight. So let's see. Let's see how that works. I'll try it. And just give a minute or two. Give everybody a little time to get in. When I turn this on, pretty much ready to go here. All right, so let's see how this works here. How's this? Jesus, I swear. You got to confirm your age to go live. How the fuck? Anybody could put anything in there. Already, I'm not liking this shit. Hold on. Hang tight. This shit is trash. Trying to scroll up, but okay. Maybe believe they want facial recognition? Jeez, this is fucking bullshit. Let's see. All right, it's taking a facial recognition. Okay. All right, I think we're good. I didn't know you had to do all that bullshit, but anyway, let me get that going. Let's try it. Let's see. All right, let's see how this works. 3, 2, 1. All right, guess we live on there. I'll keep that monitored, and let me get cracking over here. All right, so before we begin, so hopefully everybody gets notifications. This gets out, and then we'll see where it goes. Well, let me run through some quick announcements real quick. I know it's been a little bit since I did a live. Just been busy. A lot of stuff going on, etc. See how that works. I'll watch both of them. So again, just to run through real quick for the month of May, I know we're almost at the midpoint. The May classes and ritual is posted on the Patreon. If you're a Patreon member, stay posted there. You should have got your notifications. Make sure you're looking. We do have a class upcoming in 2 days. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon member, that's the best way to get in on the private classes I do. That's the frequent email I get all the time. Baniti, what kind of classes do you do? What kind of classes do you offer? How do I get in on the classes? Well, that's how you get in on the classes. All right. You get in on the classes simply by going to patreon.com, and everything I'm saying is on the ticker too, just so you know. You get in patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI. That's the page you want to go to. Go to tier 3. If you join tier 3, that's going to give you access to the 3 private classes that I do every month on Patreon, in addition to the group ritual that we do together at the end of the month. Also, if you go to the Patreon page, this way you don't have to email me, because then people say, what are the different classes you got? It's right there on the page. So when you go to the page, go to the collection section. So if you've been onto my Patreon, you'll see something that says collections. Click that. It's going to show you each class that I'm doing. They're ongoing. I rotate them. There's constant new content being added all the time. Actually, hold on. Let me grab the microphone in case I pull back. Hold on. Let me just go ahead and put the mic in because I move around. I don't want the sound kind of fade type. All right, there we go. Let me just get this on real quick. All right. So yeah, if you go to the Patreon page in the collection section, patreon.com/Baniti, BANITI tier 3. That's going to give you access to the 3 private classes that I do every month, and the group ritual. Okay. Just watching that first time. Just let me pull this up just a hair. Keep my eye on that. So that you'll see all the classes listed. This way you don't have to email me and ask me what classes do you do, what kind of classes do you offer. It's right there on there. It's all self-explanatory. All right. Want to start pumping out there because we already almost, believe it or not, in the midpoint of the year. We have the 8th annual Journey of the Black Adept Conference that's going to be coming up in October of 2025. I'll have a date for that soon. Should have an official date for that. It's always the 3rd or 4th weekend in October, so you can kind of prepare for that. But I'll have the exact date soon. You guys will be able to. Usually late July, August is when people start registering and signing up. More to come on that, and I'm going to start really pumping that out because we're getting close to that, believe it or not, at the midpoint of the year. If you're interested in a reading or a consultation, as you guys know, again, in the description box of the videos, I offer various different types of readings: Apothic demonic readings, Santa Muerte readings, Egyptian oracle readings, shadow work readings, which is always good, because if you're looking, the shadow work reading is designed. Shadow work, as we know, is ongoing, right? That's something that never stops, right? You're continuously working on the shadow self, to master the shadow self. But it's always a good thing to see if you want to know what's kind of going on currently around you. It's a great reading to do, to point you in the right direction of what you should be working on, right? As far as your ritual work, your spiritual practices, because I find a lot of people are kind of misguided in that. They're sometimes just work on things either they like or something they see, or they just dabble. When you start to really work your craft, your time is important. Your focus and your energy and what you're doing is important. And you're going to find out you don't really have a lot of energy and time to waste. So I always encourage people who are practitioners of the craft, who practice magic, whether it's witchcraft, sorcery, any type of spiritual alchemy, make it worthwhile, right? Have a focus, have an intent, have a goal. Shadow work readings help with that because it helps see what's going on. Or maybe you're just interested in a consultation. Either or, you can shoot me an email. You see it in the ticker if you're on the YouTube, or on YouTube and TikTok right now. But you'll see it on the YouTube right here, going at the bottom of the ticker, the email address. And please include in your email if you want to book a reading or a consultation. I know I repeat it always. I have to because people just don't do it. Please put the days, the weekly availability that you're available, not just one day. Please don't email me, say I'm available Tuesday at 4 o'clock. I wish it worked like that, people, but it don't. Send me a weekly availability of what you're available on a weekly basis, right? So that gives me more flexibility to find a date that works and the time zone you're in, okay? Very important. All right. Also, don't forget to check out all the social media pages. Again, on TikTok, Primordial Chaos 3. I'll just type in Primordial Chaos. It'll come up. Always get that shit confused. Primordial Chaos 9 on Instagram. Primordial Chaos, 2 words, on Facebook. Obviously, right here on the YouTube page. Again, we are on the TikTok. First time doing it. I'm watching it, kind of seeing how it goes. I guess that's going to have to build up. Not too many people in there. I think we just got one in there right now. But I'll watch it. Yeah. So, and then the Primordial Cast podcast, which is available on Spotify, all major podcast platforms. And again, if you want to become a Patreon member, that's the way to get in on the classes. I do over 5 years worth of content. There's so many videos on there. I don't even think you'll be able to get to it in this lifetime. And that's not even an exaggeration. The Patreon is designed for those who want to do work, right? If you just don't want to be sitting in the on the sidelines and watching, right? I can go in on the Patreon on levels I won't go in on YouTube or TikTok or any just public platform. So we go in depth there. We talk about things. There's no limits. And there's a lot of work and ritual in there. Tier 3 is a great tier to join. There are mentorship programs. You can join those too. But if you join the mentorship program, please, it's a commitment. I'm not talking about financially, right? That's only a small portion of the commitment. It's time, it's effort, it's energy, it's work. If you don't have the time, you're not willing to put in the energy and the work, don't waste your time. I don't want to waste your time, and I definitely don't want you to waste my time. All right. I think that covers the announcements. So I'm hoping not to keep this too long. I always say that and it never fucking works out, but I'm going to try my best because I do got shit I want to do. You see the title. So I just want to say infernal blessings to everybody who's here at the moment. Agent Provocateur. All right. Taking that name. Anthony, what's going on, bro? Yeah, I'm going to be there tomorrow night at the Panthers game. I'll be there tomorrow night. Front row and center, and hopefully we can close this bad boy out. That's the goal. You're a hockey fan. They looked really good yesterday, but it ain't over till it's over. Getting that 4th win is the toughest one. I mean, I feel good, especially the way they played the last 2 games. I figure if we come out early tomorrow night, get a lead, I think that'll be a wrap. Okay. So we will definitely be taking my son I'm a season ticket holder, so we will be there tomorrow night. Hopefully, close this thing out. All right. So you see the title. I kind of was going through some stuff, preparing some stuff, and I know I came on a little bit late. I haven't been on in a while, and I've been saying for the last couple of weeks I'm going to get on and do a live. So I was doing some research on Prometheus. If something had come up in relationship to some things that I'm doing, I said, you know what? I never really did, to my knowledge, anything on the videos or the classes on Prometheus. So I said, let me just come on here and do a little something. It's an important mask of the adversary that, in my opinion, is not really discussed enough. There's different perspectives on it, just like anything else, right? What we got? Yeah, that's going to be a good game. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked with hockey. Yeah, little disappointed with Hollenbuck. I don't know why he can't get it together in the playoffs. But I think whoever plays Edmonton, Dallas, Edmonton, I hope they beat the shit out of each other, whoever it is, and then we get one of them. But anyway, wishful thinking. I got the games on here. I mean, I've been watching all of them, and they're nothing like the NHL playoffs. Awesome, good hockey. No, these playoffs have been awesome if you're a hockey fan. All right, so yeah, Prometheus. So I came across a short section, kind of just what I kind of want to use for the foundation of this video. Probably a book a lot of you are familiar with, Awakening Lucifer by Aseneth Mason. For those who do, whether you do the open projects for the Temple of the Ascending Flame, or you're an inner temple member, some of you may or may not know I am a high priest in the Temple of the Ascending Flame, but I will be doing a open project for them in June that you guys will have access to, everybody. That will be released for the month of June. I will be sending that over to them. They had asked me again this year to do another project for them, and I will do it, only because of a lot of the things that the temple does. Whether you're a member or not, they give you access to a lot of good information. So that's kind of my way of just giving back. I do it for free, only because again, I'm on that vibe. One hand washes the other. And I say that in the sense, when I see people doing things, giving, in the sense that they're willing to give their time, their experience, their knowledge, and their intellect, if I can return that favor, I like to do the same thing. Okay. So I'll let you guys know exactly. That should come out in early June. It'll be on their main website. It's going to be a 7-day working. I'll keep that surprise for you. And I will put it out on my platforms when it's available next month. So in Awakening Lucifer, let's just go through some key quick things. This is a short, quick section. I'm just going to go through it real quick, and then we have a little discussion on it. You got some questions. I kind of go live when the spirits motivate me to go live. I don't really plan these. I used to years ago. I used to go through the whole 9. When I say the whole 9, I used to post it, announce it. I don't know. I just started to realize it was overkill. I started to realize just go with the flow, just like I do with a lot of other things, and it'll happen. That's kind of the way I live now, and go with the flow. Be really locked into the energy. Be connected to your spiritual power, and just let things flow naturally. It's definitely how I do my ritual work. Right? I stopped several years back, probably longer, preparing stuff. And again, what I'm saying now to those watching, I'm not saying my methodology is going to work for you. So let me be clear on that. So I'm not saying if you're a person that had, because there are some people who are like that by nature. They need to really prepare, maybe write things down, really organize, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make that clear. I was that person one time, but I started to feel, as I got locked into my work, connected with the gods and the goddesses, the archetypes, the demons, spirits, whatever you want to call them, things just began to flow naturally. That chaos, right? That first is not harnessed, and it's kind of why Prometheus came up tonight. We're going to go through it. When that chaos is not harnessed or order is made out of it, then it becomes devouring, right? And we could tie that also. There's a lot of concepts with Prometheus with the pep, right? You'll see that connection there too. But I just found as things flowed naturally, they just started to come, right?
especially when it comes to your ritual work. But let's go through this short section in the Awakening Lucifer scroll. I know this has been out for several years. I know a lot of you have it. We've gone through it on and off here and there over the years a couple of times. So I'm gonna run through this real quick. Keep my eye on that real quick. All right, that's not really popping off, but we'll. It says Prometheus is one of the best known Luciferian archetypes, the bringer of fire, the benefactor of mankind. Now, I don't really care for this term, the trickster. Now, I want to be clear. When you see that, you'll see, for an example, in African traditional religions with Legba or Ishu, you see that title given. I want to make this clear. It doesn't mean in the sense when you see that title, the trickster, to a mask of Lucifer, what it's talking about is not that its goal is to set out to deceive you and his goal is to trick you into deception of destruction. It's the trickster spirit because it lays tests and challenges out in front of you. And you're going to have to use, your knowledge, your wisdom, your understanding to overcome those challenges. So that's kind of, I just want to be clear when you see that term, okay? It's the adversary to the divine order. All this contributes to the image of the first initiator of man and myth of a powerful primordial being transgressing the law of the gods for the purpose, what's this all for? For the purpose of growth and evolution. Now, as we go on, you're going to see Prometheus represents just pure, unbridled chaos in its purest form. And really, when you go back, if you go back and you really understand the concept of darkness and chaos, how the ancients understood it before we personified it more in human form, darkness itself was the adversary, right? A lot of people are not familiar with that because a lot of stuff over the years, as these concepts kind of evolved over the years, for good and bad. I just want to make that clear. Some good, some bad. There's been a lot, just like religion and just how they take the Bible and the biblical stories, and as they're translated and passed down, in certain areas it becomes a little diluted and watered down, and we have to be aware of that. All right. These motifs are found in the whole Luciferian tradition, embodied by various mythological figures and archetypes, of which Prometheus bears a special significance. And we'll get into a little bit of the Greek mythology. I don't really fuck with too much of that, but there's a brief section in here on that. We're not gonna go too much into that, but we'll talk about it. The mythological figures and archetypes of which Prometheus bears a special significance as he personifies the cosmological ambivalence with the universe by bridging the old and the new, darkness and the light, the conscious and the unconscious, good and evil, etc. Now, let me stop there. That's important to understand, right? Because when you look at those concepts, you can't have one without the other. You can't have light if there's no darkness, right? What we are perceiving as good and evil, which is a vibrational frequency, you can't have one without the other, right? And that's perception. That's where perception comes into play. When you look at, as it explains Prometheus as in that first part, bridging the old, right, and the new. Okay. So what it does is when we talk about even connecting the principle of Leviathan, the principle of continuity and existence, and in continuity and existence, there's consistency, right? And in order to really understand this, you have to be consistent in all you do. See, the problem is a lot of people are not consistent on this path. A lot of people read books. They could belong on all these social media platforms because there's all these different groups you can join, this, that, and the third. But that's not really where you get your growth, right? You get your growth in doing your work, right? Your work is anything. When I'm saying work, just so we're clear, your work is anything that involves your rituals, your spiritual practice, breathing, meditation, anything that involves something of a spiritual nature that is to better yourself. That's all in alignment with what I refer to as work. If there's no body of work and there's no consistency there, there's no growth. There's no results. Some people think results is because they've read so many books and they think they know so much shit that they sometimes will falsely interpret that as growth. That's not growth. That's just you being able to recollect or regurgitate a lot of shit. Growth is measured by the results. I can't stress that enough. It's that simple. So when people ask questions like, how do I know what I'm doing is right? This is a question that comes up in many various forms. How do I know what I'm doing is right? How do I know I'm on the right path? How do I know the ritual work I'm doing is this? How do I know this, that, and the third? Well, real simple. What kind of results are manifesting in your life? Okay, are you growing on what I like to call the 5 P's of self-mastery, which my Patreon page is based on, which is all how I look at and break down the 5-pointed star, the imposed Baphomet on it. Those 5 points of self-mastery are real simple. How you know what you're doing is right? Are you evolving and growing in all facets of your life, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and oh yes, financially? Now, if you're seeing consistency in all those 5 points of self-mastery, then what you're doing, you're on the right track. Continue. You could also maybe see some growth in certain areas, maybe some not so much, then that just means there's more work to do. But if you're not seeing a consistency across the board, then yes, there's a telltale sign you need to make some adjustments, some changes. But it amazes me when people say, I'm not getting any results, nothing's not happening, but there's no body of work and there's no consistency to support that. That's why nothing's not happening. Don't fool yourself and think you're just going to be, do a one and done. Like you just go, I'm going to do a ritual. It's crazy because some people do that shit. They just think they're supposed to just do one ritual, poof, and everything is fixed. You're fooling yourself. That's not how this works. All right. So this is all in alignment with what Prometheus represents as an archetype. Okay. Also, his gift of fire has much deeper meaning than it seems on the surface, referring not only to the element of fire as such, but also to the human desire of transcendence, the longing for freedom and independence, or in other words, the Luciferian desire of man, and I would say women too, to be equal to the gods, right? Also, look at the element of fire. Fire is like a double-edged sword. It can burn and destroy, but it could refine and purify. This is why you see a lot of the demons and the gods and the goddesses on this path. This is why the element of fire is used with a lot of these masks of Lucifer and various archetypes, right? Why do you think when you look at the concept of what they call the pits of hell, why do you think the element of fire? See, don't go by that surface bullshit, that religious spookism shit, because it's fire and it's going to burn you and annihilate and destroy you. That's not what fire means to us on the occult in the left-hand path. Why do you think we use black in the element of fire? Black candles, the black flame in general, the element of fire in general, because of this concept right here. Like, yes, fire can destroy, but as we know in the concept of the left-hand path in the occult, it must all be destroyed in order to be rebuilt back up again correctly. So in Prometheus and his element of fire, right, you see yourself. I've said to you guys many times before, when you come on this path, you're basically saying, here I am, take me apart, completely annihilate and destroy me, and put me back together again, correct? The element of fire plays a role in that, because that fire is going to do the burning and the destroying aspect, the deconstructive aspect, but it's also going to refine, it's going to purify, it's going to cleanse, it's going to make anew, right? So that's an important thing to understand, right? This is why anytime you see flame, whether it's the black flame, the temple of the ascending flame, whatever you might, it's always in alignment with transformation and change, right? You have to look at these concepts a lot deeper than what they're being explained on the surface, okay? So let's continue. Oh, and the freedom and independence. There's nothing more important in life in general. Okay, nothing more important in life in general than your spiritual freedom and sovereignty. You're not truly free until you have your spiritual sovereignty. Because a lot of people who are not free mentally and spiritually are in bondage. Okay. When you are confined and limited because you can't truly have that independence and freedom because of what others might think, or you're living a life because you have a boundary, you can only do certain things to a certain degree because maybe of the people in your life, or you're influenced and you're affected by what other people might think of you, etc. Is not the path for you. Okay. And one thing you have to separate from is that conformist mentality. If you live your life to please others, you will be a miserable person and you will go to the grave miserable. Okay. First and foremost, you must understand you cannot please everybody. So don't fool yourself. You cannot please your family, everybody. You cannot please all your friends. You just have to learn how to live your life and know how to walk in circles and know how to deal with people in certain circles. That's it. Right? A lot of us have gained our independence and freedom from being a conformist, from feeling like we have to conform to what mainstream is doing. And this is what holds people back from growing on this path. We have a lot of closet occult practitioners because they're afraid to just be themselves. Now, I want to be clear when I'm saying this. When I say be yourself, just be yourself. I'm not talking about, then there's the people who go to the extreme. You don't have to announce this is people who just feel like they got to show everybody what they are in a very extreme, drastic way. No, live your life. Just be yourself, right? I mean, how you see me on here on these videos, this is how you'll see me everywhere I go, right? I'm not wearing black everywhere. I'm just talking about going to the extreme. Yeah, you might see I have a little, I like to wear my chains and my pendants, and that's it. But I'm a t-shirt, jeans, shorts, right? You don't have, some people feel like they have to fit a certain motif in order to be that, right? Like some people feel like if they're a Satanist or a Luciferian practitioner, like they got to wear black all the time, or they're a vampire magician, so they got to go to the extreme. Now, if you're doing that naturally because that's what you want to do, cool. But there's a lot of practitioners just like you and me, we just ordinary looking motherfuckers, right? We just walk around looking like this. You wouldn't know. You would just think I'm just some regular person, just like anybody else you run into. That's what I mean when I say about being yourself, right? You don't have to, adjust who you are for anything or anybody. That's important. That's what independence and spiritual sovereignty really represents. Okay. Just checking on this. I'm not going. All right. The myth itself rests on several motifs, meaning Prometheus, that you may be familiar with, but if you're not, here's a short overview. Most of us, we know about Prometheus is derived from a number of ancient texts, among which the most famous are Hesiod's works and Days and Theogony. Other sources for the Prometheus myth are Homeric hymns and the works of Pindar and Pythagoras. And this is where the Greek mythology comes in. There's a short little thing here. According to the legend, Prometheus was one of the Titans, and he belonged to the second order of divine beings. His father was Aeptus, and his mother was Clymene, or Asia, one of the Oceanids, and his brothers were Atlas, Eunuchus, Prometheus. The Titans were in Greek mythology, this is. The Titans were primordial beings that preceded the Olympian deities, the children of Gaia, Mother Earth, and Uranus, Father Sky. They were depicted as giants of incredible strength, endowed with power and the qualities of the first gods and goddesses that were born from primordial chaos. You can look at this as the infernal spirits with the clip hop, right? This is applied in our spiritual system too, with Lilith, with Naama, with Samael, with Belial, etc. List goes on and on. Right. So you're dealing with your infernal and your primordial beings, right? Primordial has root in the word prime, original. Everything was birthed out of that primordial chaos. Religion, whether you're aware of it or not, as I said before, the Bible tells on itself in the first chapter of Genesis, the first couple of verses, where it confirms that God's spirit is roaming across the void and the deep. The beginning of Genesis starts out in chaos, right? And this God existed in that chaos. And this is before he makes the statement, let there be light. So if he was existing in this primordial abyss, darkness and the void and the abyss cannot be this evil concept that is described in the lesser mysteries, right? So this is important to understand because this is what Prometheus represents. And we're going to continue because it goes a little bit further, right? In ancient literature, we learn about them from Hesiod, who describes the war between these old beings and the Olympian gods, the so-called Titanomachy, which ends with the overthrowing of the Titans and the reign of Zeus. This cosmic struggle belongs to a series of similar myths across the world depicting a conflict between the older and younger generation of gods, corresponding to such myths as the Babylonian epic, the Enuma Elish, in which the primordial dragon goddess Tiamat fights against Marduk. In these myths, the elder gods are either slain or cast out of the New World Order, which also happens with the Titans. So you'll see that through history with a lot of stories that are trying to instill a deeper understanding of a concept, especially the story of the two warring brothers, right? Right, you can see that with Enki and Enlil in the Sumerian Babylonian epics. You could see that in ancient Egypt, whether it's the concept of Set and Usil, or Set and Osiris, and Set and Heru and Horus, aka Horus. You see that when you get into the biblical stories multiple times. It starts with Cain and Abel, then it goes to Jacob and Esau, right? And these stories are symbolic, and what they represent is the inner struggle, the battle between the higher and the weaker self, your higher or your lower self. This is what these stories depicted. Even Jacob's ladder, right? The story of Jacob's ladder. I've gone through that a few times, right? And that ladder represents, as I told you guys, the spinal column. It represents that Kundalini energy raising. When one obtains to a certain state of God, because it says, according to the story, it says he wrestled with El, or he wrestled with God, right? People don't understand what that story means. And it took at a place called pineal, right? Which is very similar to the word pineal or pineal gland. So really what it's talking about in that story, the pineal was opened. He attained a certain state of consciousness. So that's why I say he wrestled, but he intermingled with what we would call the high spiritual forces of awareness and consciousness. He went to the astral realms and connected with, quote unquote, if you want to say God, according to the biblical text, right? And then what was his name changed to after that? It went from Yaqub or Jacob to Israel. And that is translated in Hebrew to ascend to El, meaning he ascended to God. He raised the Kundalini energy, the chakras were activated, and he opened himself up to high states of consciousness where he transcended a three-dimensional existence of person, place, and thing, and he now vibrated outside of that. That's what that story is really telling you when you read it. So no more is he called Yaqub, he's called Israel, right? His name is changed to Israel, right? Ascend to El, okay? So that's what a lot of that is referring to. But let's continue on. So when you're seeing that, and I'm glad it's put in this text, because you can synchronize a lot of stories told in different periods of time in different cultures. And what they're trying to do is they are telling a similar story. Just the names, the places might change. Okay. According to Hesiod, they are defeated, overthrown, and locked up in Tartarus, where they are to remain for an eternity. The primordial force is tamed or eliminated, and a new order is established. Okay. Where man is created as a weak creature of clay, a servant to the gods of a new pantheon, this leaves a very limited role for human beings. They are to work, worship the gods, and make offerings of the fruits of their labor. But then a new character is introduced into the whole scenario, an adversary or trickster that will oppose the rigid structure of the new world order and reverse the role of the gods and the human race. Here we meet Prometheus. So again, we have the concept, another mask of the adversary, whether it's Lucifer, something that's going to ignite an inner awakening, that's going to take people out of a state of ignorance, slumber, and mental sleep, where they're going to wake up and come to the realization of who and what they are. That's what Prometheus represents. That's what these stories represent. Even when you go into the Greek mythology in this story that I was talking about just a minute ago, right? There's always something where something rises up and goes against the established system that is used to indoctrinate, enslave people mentally, sometimes literally, physically, right? There's always something that emerges from that primordial chaos that brings that inner awakening. And henceforth, as it says, here we meet Prometheus. He already appears in the legend of Titan Maki, where, however, he does not side with the other Titans, but with the Olympian gods, fighting next to Zeus against his brothers. For this reason, he is not sent to the chthonic depths of Tartarus, but becomes a part of the new cosmic order, thus connecting the old with the new, right? The primal power of the Titans and the vitality of the younger generation of gods. This represents high forms of change. See, one thing you learn, simple, basic metaphysics, anything that doesn't change dies, right? Anything that doesn't evolve or grow dies. And the one thing that's constant in the universe, I want to just say the universe, say the multiverses, is change. That's the only thing that's constant. And this is why you always hear me say being on this path is about embracing a path of great change. You can never get complacent on this path. You can never just sit back and get comfortable and lackadaisical, because that's when you'll get swallowed up and devoured. It's a fast and constant evolving and changing path. And no, it's not for everybody. If you're not a person who is equipped or built for that, it will be a struggle for you. If you're somebody who likes more normalcy and structure, see, within the chaos, you can find your own personal normalcy and structure. So I want to say that. You have to find your own niche and how that works for you. But if you're looking for an overall methodology of structure and stagnation, and you're just looking for something that you can control, and it's just very rigid and structured, notice you're going to struggle. It's not for you. Okay, that's just reality, right? And this is what keeps us sharp on our toes. We always have to be ready and prepared for the change, right? If you sit back and you get complacent, when that chaos comes up over the horizon, what do I mean by that? When drastic changes start to manifest in your life on all levels, personal, mental, emotional, spiritual, you're not prepared for them. Because what happens with complacency, there's something that comes in that is a downfall, and it's a destructive force in people's life, and it's called comfortableness. Okay? You can never get too comfortable and complacent. It's not going to work on this path. It's actually going to be a weakness that will be exposed, and at some point, you will run into situations where it's going to be tough for you to get out of. Okay? I'll make that clear. All right, let's continue on. Then it goes on to say, we left off here, I'm sorry. Thus connecting the old with the new, the primal power of the Titans, and the vitality of the younger generation of gods. It is Prometheus, with the help of his brother, Prometheus, that creates man out of clay and saves the human race from destruction by teaching man the secrets of civilization. He also tricks Zeus and deprives the gods of sacrifice that was originally demanded from mankind. This myth is known as the trick and Mession, and describes how Prometheus split a large bull in two parts and asked the chief of the gods to choose one of them. The first part was meat, hidden under the skin, and the other consisted of bones, wrapped in glistening fat. Zeus fell for the trick and chose the other part, leaving the meat and the best part of the sacrificial animal for humanity. When he realized his mistake, he decided to punish the Titan by hiding fire from mankind, thus depriving man of the power of creation and evolution. Here, for the first time, we see Prometheus as the trickster, okay? Where did that go? And challenger to the power and the omnipotence of the chief gods, right? Now, again, I'm not going to go through all this. You can read some of this mythology because I'm going to skip down to some of the other forces. Go down. I'm going to go down to the bottom of this page. Let me skip down here because I'm not going to go through all this, but just want to point out some bottom paragraph. Promethean fire as an apocalyptic force, okay, is another motif that connects the Greek Titan with Loki. Although this interpretation is not always obvious on the surface, both Loki and Prometheus are the bringers of fire, and this fire stands for illumination and transformation. Like the torch of Lucifer, the light bearer, from the perspective of Luciferian Gnosis, that the fire that Prometheus and Loki bring forth into the world represents knowledge originating from chaos, wisdom that leads to awakening, evolution, and transformation of consciousness. Back to what I was saying earlier about what that true element of fire represents, right? So pay attention to this. This is important, right? I'm going to skip now. I'm going to go down. Where is it? Okay, right here. The gnosis of Prometheus, however, is spiritual in its essence. According to the myth, after stealing fire from Olympus, he instructed mankind not only in crafts, but also introduced man to the occult arts, thus awakening the psychic evolutionary potential in humanity. In Prometheus Bound, Aeschylus writes that human beings were witless until he endowed them with reasoning. Okay, and there's an important aspect of reasoning, and I'm glad this comes up because there's an important aspect of reasoning that we need to master and use as a practice on this path to come to the conclusions and get the answers that we need that work for us in our life and on our path. And it's something you may or may not be familiar with. It's called deductive reasoning. I've talked about that before. If you understand what deductive reasoning, I mean, the word itself before reasoning kind of explains what the concept is. You deduct things away when you're reasoning things out. And after you're done through that deductive elimination process, you get to the core essence of what the truth is, right? And if we use the aspect of deductive reasoning, we will find out that it is a good way for us, or a good practice for us to use to make proper decisions when it comes to ourselves. Okay. Most people, the concept of reasoning itself, most people don't use reasoning. They don't even know how to reason things out. Right. And reasoning is a science that has to be utilized, especially when we're making critical decisions that are going to impact us long term. Reasoning should be used, especially deductive reasoning, when you're trying to get to what truth is for you. That deductive or eliminating process is critical and it's key. Okay, so all of that is there. Where is it? Jump the page. Hold on. Okay. In Prometheus Bound, that's where we left off. Okay, right here. In Prometheus Bound, he endowed him with reason. They had eyes, but saw to no avail. They had ears, but they did not understand. Or just as shapes in dreams throughout the legend of days, right? There you go. Okay, through the length of days. Without purpose, they wrought all things in confusion. His gift, therefore, was not only the knowledge of civilization, but also self-awareness and awakened consciousness. self-awareness and awakened consciousness. Because a lot of us, not to say us literally, but a lot of people in general are asleep. That's the problem. Okay. And that inner awakening or that inner fire needs to be lit. Right. And when that inner fire or that inner awakening happens and you're called to a certain path of awakening, you must heed to that call. Okay. So there's only two things that happen. Either you embrace it or you reject it. And your life becomes very difficult when you reject that call. All right. But let's continue on because it's going to get to the meat of it now. Right. All right. These concept and esoteric traditions are usually identified with the Kundalini, the serpent force, which burns like the Promethean fire in every cell of the human body, ascending in a stream of flaming force to bring forth illumination and freedom, transforming man into a godlike being. This interpretation is confirmed by another meaning of the name Prometheus, according to which it is connected with the word Pramantha, in Sanskrit denoting a tool used to create fire. This analogy is derived from the Vedic myth describing the depth of fire from the gods. Highly reminiscent of the Greek legend, Prometheus steals the divine fire by hiding it in the narthex, which is a giant fennel like force. Yep. And a giant fennel stalk, but we can also look at it from a different perspective. The narthex, or the hollow tube in which Prometheus gathers the divine fire, and it corresponds to the spinal column or the Sushumna Nadi in the subtle body of man, the main channel for the Kundalini flow. Okay. So you see, so what it's essentially saying here, and this is why Prometheus across the board is connected with a lot of concepts. So here we're seeing the connecting with the dragon energy, the serpent, the raising of the Kundalini energy, that burning fire that rages within. All of this is connected to the legend and the concepts of what Prometheus represents. So all of it, and that's why I titled the video, The Great Awakener, all of it is that divine awakening that takes place within. It's your primordial nature that awakens when you come out of being in mental slavery, mental bondage, and when you come out of systems of indoctrination. It's the primordial chaotic side of your nature that does this. And I did a video not too long ago, I believe. I can't remember the title. It's a recent one. Something about your chaos. But anyway, your chaos is what saves you, right? Your chaos is what awakens you, right? Don't look at see. We don't. I know when we hear the word chaos, more so for maybe people not familiar with this path, most people in their minds think, excuse me, that that's something negative or something bad, and it's not. Your chaos is your salvation. Okay, when you embrace it, but when you resist it, or when you fight it, or you try to bury it or sweep it under the rug and act like it's not there. When you act like you don't have a chaotic aspect of your nature, when you fool yourself and pretend that you're some do-gooder and I'm peace and love and I love you, you love me, kumbaya, let's hug, let's hold hands and run through lily fields butt naked with fucking blades of grass tickling our ass, right? You're fooling yourself. Stop acting like you don't have an animal-like, raw, aggressive part of your nature. You were endowed with it at creation. Why are you pretending it doesn't exist? You've been shaped and molded from birth into another image and likeness that's not real. Because what they've done from day one when you're birthed into this existence, and I say they, those who have an agenda, that's the political system, the religious system, the economic system, etc. They start to shape and mold you into their image and likeness, which is a conformist. They try to tell you how you should dress, how you should think, how you should look, what you should eat, how you should feel, who you should be siding with, et cetera, et cetera. They make you a puppet on all levels, or what we call a conformist. 100% pure conformist is somebody who just does what everybody else is doing because they've been led to believe that's the right thing. Because they feel like if the masses, everybody is doing it, it must be right. And 9 out of 10 times it's not. Okay? Very important for us to grasp. All right, a little more I got in here. Now we'll go through the chat. I'll just shoot the shit for a little bit. Again, I am going to try to keep this not too long. All right. All right, so here we go. Almost there. Okay. Okay, so the fennel stalk, but we can also look at it from a different perspective. The narthex of the hollow tube in which Prometheus gathers the divine force is where we left off, corresponds to the spinal column or the sushumna, the nadi and the subtle body of man, the main channel of the Kundalini flow. Thus, like the Titan who brought down fire from heaven, the practitioner working with the serpent force brings down the divine fire to manifest in Maya, the world of shadows and illusions. Promethean fire, which burns within all of creation, is therefore a metaphor for the fire snake. The evolutionary force unfolding from the inside and triggering all growth and progress of mankind. Let me say that again. Okay. The evolutionary force of unfolding from the inside, not the outside. I don't care what grimoire, what spiritual system you are studying, if it is true occult, the left hand by nature, it always starts within. Notice that. This is why you always hear me say over the years, this path is an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. Most other systems, all right-hand path philosophies, dogmas, and religions are an outward journey in. They are showing you openly that they are trying to unalign and disconnect you from who you are right out the gate, from the very first thing that they teach you, that this divine force, God's spirit of being that you are trying to connect with exists somewhere, way the fuck out there somewhere. So they're telling you from the very get-go, what was original and primordial by nature, they have reversed it completely. So instead of you looking within to the inner depths of your subconscious mind, to the deep reaches of your soul and the true essence of who you are, they want you to look somewhere out there for a sky daddy way out there in the sky somewhere. So right out the gate, you got strike one against you when you embrace a spiritual system or a religious system that you believe some spook force or God is controlling. And that you've also embraced the concept that you are inferior to that spook God or force that you feel exists out there. That's part of the unalignment process, okay? Promethean fire, which burns within all creation, is therefore a metaphor of the fire snake, the evolutionary force unfolding from the and I'll say it again, from the inside and triggering all growth and progress of mankind. Okay. This is what is meant by Asclepius when he says that every art possessed by man comes from Prometheus. Practical work with the energy and consciousness of Prometheus brings forth many insights about working with the inner fire, the individual potential of all growth and all evolution. His initiatory lessons are about inner strength. Okay. Self-confidence and courage to face anything that comes our way, but also about connecting heaven and earth, the above and the below concept, right? Which really is so within, so without. By ascending to the heights to bring down the divine fire from the stars, and then passing down our knowledge and experience acquired during this work to others. These visions and insights are accompanied by intense Kundalini sensations, and it often feels as if the practitioner's body was being consumed and transformed by fire. Descending from above, releasing consciousness from the bonds of flesh and opening way to the divine. These sensations can it be experienced as pressure within the head, right? Especially in the third eye area, a feeling of the skin burning or itching, increased heartbeat, etc. In other words, it feels as if the whole body was being destroyed, and what I said earlier, reconstructed. That's Prometheus. Deconstruction and reconstruction in a very physical, tangible way. Sometimes this union of heaven and earth is accompanied by a release of sexual energy and experienced through intense sexual visions, showing that the Promethean fire is also the fire of passion. And I'm just going to be honest with you, you will find individuals who are really connected to this path have a very strong, high sexual drive, right? And that can be challenging because that has to be controlled and harnessed correctly, because it can get very out of hand if it's not channeled or controlled. It should not be suppressed fully, because that's just as damaging or destructive. And the passion, and as it described there with Prometheus, the sexual energy of it can be very consuming if one doesn't know how to deal with it. But you will find people who are locked into the path or the current have a high drive, a very high drive. The challenge, though, again, as I said just a minute or so, well, a few seconds ago, is harmonizing that out. How do you indulge and feed that force and tap into it and connect it and use it not just for gratification, which that's part of it, let's not act like it's not, but for growth, transformation, and change? Because a lot of us who now are really linked and locked into this path, we look at sexual energy in a whole different way, right? It takes on a whole different meaning, right? We clearly know how to decipher when it's just pleasure and lust, which is necessary, because there's that part of your nature that you must feed. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Fuck that holy or thou shit. No, not me, No, there's that part, but there's also the spiritual part, right? We really learn how to decipher between the two and how they serve a purpose, right? Very important. So there's more that can be gone into that, but you will find that passion and that energy has to be tapped into, right? Let's see it. Okay. All right. Almost done. Okay. Which itself is a potent force that can drive us either to creation or to destruction, right? Just like anything, whether it's chaos, sexual energy, any of those things can be very transforming, or they can be very destructive if not harnessed the correct way. It is both the light of illumination and the powerful force of transformation. And then the last paragraph, Prometheus teaches us how to change and transform ourselves. So this is going to be the summarization of what Prometheus represents. Now, I would encourage you, whether it's using his sigils, I would encourage you, if you really want to understand the hidden gnosis of this, right? Create your own ritual working with Prometheus for great transformation, growth, and change. But be prepared, especially for the changed part. Because when you're asking for transformation, you're also asking for change. You can't have one without the other. There's something, how can something transform if it doesn't change? So in essence, transformation and change, they are two aspects of the same thing, growth. And when there's growth, there has to be that change. Can't avoid it. All right. Prometheus teaches us how to change and transform ourselves and our environment by using the fire to destroy what weakens us as a force of self-empowerment. If we want to take these lessons and learn from them, we have to open ourselves to his intelligence, creativity, and resourcefulness, and let him guide us through the process. This involves all his aspects, the teacher, the initiator, but also the trickster and the adversary. The bringer of fire walks alone, driven by will to power, alternately creating and destroying the world. In this sense, he is the shaker of the earth, the catalyst for change, and the unpredictable variable, signifying both the unexpected opportunity and the sudden accident. This work will most likely trigger a change in our universe or our world, our life, right? So we should pay attention to all that happens in our life. These changes may cause both obstacles and opportunities, but the nature of the Promethean fire is chaotic, and it rarely brings exactly what we want. Instead, Prometheus will prompt us to use his fire to overcome the obstacles, his intelligence to recognize the opportunities, and his passion to seize the best of what they offer to us. We have to work for this, though, as the gift of fire is only the beginning. The rest is up to us. And we have to use his energy to take action and shape our universe when we see his force manifesting in our life. Visions and messages delivered by the bringer of fire may be ruthless, disturbing, and painful, but such is also the nature of change. Okay? Can't have it. If you don't think you're going to go through some hardship, some pain, and some suffering, right, in order to obtain that change, then you don't understand what this path is about. Okay? Sometimes it is a welcome in our life. Other times it brings painful lessons from which we have to learn, adapt to the new situations, and survive the process, empowered and forged in the fire of transformation. All right? So that kind of sums it up in a nutshell, right? Prometheus is about great transformation and change. So I'm sure some of you have worked with or are working with, you probably can relate. If you're somebody watching this or you watch the recording of this later, and maybe you're newer and you're not familiar, do your research. So the question, if somebody had asked, there's your answer as far as why would I want to work with Prometheus? If you want change, if you're struggling, I mean, he's the great transformer or evolver, right? But take heed, as it said there, right? Be prepared, because that change is so, like with a lot of other aspects of this path, it's fast, it's quick, and sometimes it's painful, right? So don't go into it thinking it's going to be a cakewalk, just like anything else on this path is not, right? Because what you're going to do is you're going to fool yourself, and you're going to put yourself in a bad situation. Maniac Mitchell, just saw you pop in. I got your emails, brother. I'm going to listen to them tracks. I haven't had a chance. I know you just sent it about a day or two ago. As is on my agenda. I'm glad you sent me some new music. I hope everything is well out there in Buffalo, New York. For those that don't know, a couple months ago, I had a good, me and brother Maniac Mitchell had a chance to link up with him in Buffalo. Posted some pics of it. It's good talk. I gotta hit you up, brother. We haven't talked in a minute. I hope you and the fam and everybody's good. I'm glad to see you still doing the music. Matter of fact, that's the other thing I got to get with you with, because brother Taza reached out to me. It's that time to do another episode with the music. We've gotten busy again and fell off the last few months, so we're gonna get back on that. So I'm gonna reach out to you on that. Definitely want. Maybe we'll play some of that stuff on there too. All right. I'm gonna go to the chat. Like I say, I kind of not gonna keep this too long. I just wanted to run through the Prometheus, so I'm just gonna cover a little more ground. If you guys got some questions, that's kind of where I'm gonna leave it. So I'm gonna scroll up to the top. So now is your time. If you got questions, you want to ask something, feel free to type that in. Let's do that now. That's kind of where I'm at. So let me come to the top. I don't think there's too much in here. I was from earlier. Yeah, I agree. This Jose Munoz, I do believe that this year, man. Listen, that when we're saying shit like the years going by, you're gonna notice, man, when you're locked in on this path, right? I've noticed, I'm gonna say this is the third year, but it seems like it's moving quicker and quicker now. Okay. What that's a sign of, as I said before. All right, I'm gonna turn this off. TikTok shit is whack. crazy. All right, got that fixed. Well, yeah, like I said, these last 3 years, man, this year, yeah, literally, I know I've been saying this the last couple of years, but like Benita, you say the same shit every year because it's true. I felt like I just blinked. I literally feel like you guys know how much I love Christmas. I literally feel like I didn't take down my Christmas stuff not that long ago. That's what it feels like to me. That's how quick almost we're at the midpoint of the year. I felt like, to me, it feels like just a couple of weeks ago I took all my Christmas stuff down. And then guess what? Before you know it, I'll be putting that shit back up. Like I even gauged that how time flies with the conference. Like I say to myself, the conference seemed like we didn't have it too long ago. And it's crazy because the cycle of time I'm on, because when you're on cyclical time, it carries a vibrational frequency. So I'm big on that cyclical vibrational frequency. So I know as October approaches, right? It's like a whole regeneration period, another cycle of change that starts, right? This is how I view it, right? And this is how I'm locked in and connected to it. So when the conference comes, and then I know shortly after the conference, right, we start on that weekend of Halloween, which is or what they call Halloween, which is the season that begins leading into the high holidays, stasis and darkness, which is a wonderful time of year for those that are on this path. Winter is my favorite time of the year, right? It's just because you get ready to go into that cycle of great change. And I think the more we grow in those cycles of great change and those states of stagnance and darkness, we're breaking that what we're calling that linear time barrier. People who are locked in and controlled by linear time, these are your people that are asleep. These are your people who feel like, oh man, times are hard and rough and things are moving sometimes slow, or it feels like forever. You hear people say that in regards to certain things. Oh man, shit feels like forever. I don't, Fortunately, I haven't been able to feel or use that type of verbiage for years now, because I'm the opposite. I feel like, because when you're not controlled by linear time, my problem I struggle with, I'm vibrating on cyclical time, and I just feel like when I got to exist in this realm, in this mundane world, I feel like that's when you start feeling like you don't have enough time to do everything. That's me. I'm the reverse. I feel like in this low vibrational frequency realm that's controlled by linear time, we supersede it on a mental, emotional, and an intellectual level, that we struggle to exist within it now. And as we continue to grow and evolve and we separate from it further, we're going to have to learn to master that skill. This is what I mean when I keep saying to you guys, over the last several months to a year, you're basically jumping between different realms, whether you're conscious of it or not, right? That's why time, we use the term, is flying by. And I noticed, this is year 3, that I've seen a very fast acceleration of that. Now, I felt like that for quite a few years, but I feel like that is accelerated even more. And this is what's kind of now separating what I've said in the last couple of the end of year classes on Patreon. Now, for those that were there for this last one, everything you're seeing going on, not because I'm special or I'm some fucking prophet that was sent to the world. I told you a lot of these things that are happening. And we're seeing also a lot of so-called spiritual warriors, or people who are on this path. We're seeing them be misled and falling back into old systems of indoctrination. Because I told you guys at the end of the year, going into the beginning of this year, this would be the year. Their goal now, they've gotten what we called things going on in the world. They got the low vibrational frequency people. I already told you that. The ones that are out there clubbing still all the time, acting ignorant, dressing ignorant, talking ignorant, doing low vibrational frequency, negative shit. They're in the clubs all the time. All they're doing is smoking or getting high or doing all types of drugs and getting drunk and fucked up and pissing their money away on nonsense, not living their life in accordance with any type of divine plan for themselves, for their personal growth. They got all those people. They don't care about them people no more. They've established a system that's so strong for people who are in that matrix, they're going to get destroyed and devoured by it. So now that they've accomplished that, they're now going to focus their attention on you, on us, Who's the you and the us I'm referring to? Those who are really ascending, growing, and transforming, that know, that are aware, because we are the major threat to the plan that they have. Because their goal is they don't want us waking anybody else up. But I'm not telling you to live your life. Don't watch movies and like shit in the movies and get spooked out. Live your life. But what I am saying is, if you're a practitioner on this path, you're locked in and you know your power. What I am saying is, stay locked in on what it is you do. Be aware. Be consistent. Because if you're not, as soon as you let your guard down, turn your head the other way, boom. They find a way. Let me tell you another trick way they'll get you. Okay? And this happens to a lot of people, especially people who start to crack their niche on this path. And then I've seen it happen to practitioners who have been locked on this path for years. See, if you start seeing shit around you happening that appears to be out of the norm, pay attention. When people start to grow and evolve on this path, especially in the beginning, what starts to happen is all of a sudden things that they couldn't get prior, like they start, and I'm not just talking about like materialistic things. I'm talking about like people start popping back in their life, or people that they wanted in their life. It could be if you're a man, a certain woman you might have desired a little while back in the past, all of a sudden appears and manifests and wants and desires you. Could be the reverse. Same thing if you're a woman, vice versa, whatever. People start calling you out of the blue. All type of things start coming in your path that look opportunistic and positive for you on a personal level, but really all they are tools to bring you down and destroy you. So all these things start to happen because what happens is once you start speeding up that vibrational frequency and you're locked into your own spiritual power, that's when these adverse forces start coming for you. When I say adverse, I'm saying adverse to who and what you really are. That's why I say adverse forces, right? Because this is an adversarial path. So when we use that term, the adversary or an adversarial current of path, we're saying adverse to the norm or to the conform. Okay? Very important to understand that. So it's very important you are clear and protect yourself on a personal level. But yes, it's flying by. Haunted Lavender, thank you for asking. I always appreciate asking if I'm doing well. I am doing well. It's been a busy last couple of months this year. Man, between what I'm doing, you get what you guys may or not know. I work a career job. I have a side business. I do this, and then obviously I have clients that I do all on a regular basis that I do spiritual readings and consultations for. Understand that when you reach it, this is why you don't see me on here all the time. Unfortunately, I can't be and like one of them people that are on YouTube. I mean, some of those people do it for a living. I just don't do this for a living, right? I don't have the luxury to be on YouTube daily. Some people are. Maybe when I get to a certain point and I stop doing some things on the side, I can focus more. But yeah, I don't have that ability to be on here when you see some people on here daily, weekly, regularly. Some people on here more than once a day. I just ain't got that time because of the stuff I do. But also keep in mind, as I said before to you guys, when it comes to spiritualists, there's a reason why they're online every day like that. Be careful. Those are usually the ones running the hustle. Those are the ones that are usually encouraging you to reach out to them to do some type of spiritual work that you're going to pay a crazy amount of money to do, and you get ripped off, right? That's why they're on the internet every day, because they're looking for victims, right? I come on here to teach and educate and to elevate, right? I'm not on here to tell you to agree with everything I'm saying. I'm telling you, check it out for yourself, come to your own conclusions. As I've said, I used to say in the past, I'm not here recruiting you for anything. I'm not encouraging you to sign up for any group or organization, right? This is a very, my channel is based on a very independent school of thought. Doesn't matter what background you come from, doesn't matter what walk of life, Doesn't matter what spiritual perspective you come from, right? The goal here is to teach, educate, and elevate, right? Teach, educate, elevate. And you take the information, you do what you see fit. I'm not in the business of being liked. I do appreciate those that like me and respect me and show me the love. I appreciate that. I'm not saying I don't, but that's not why I was sent, right? That's not why I was sent to do what I do. When I say sent, when you come, when you know what your calling is, right? I know what my calling is. Did I know that years back? No. I had to grow. Some of us have to grow into what we call a vocation, right? Is a term you'll hear used sometimes, right? But when you know your purpose and you know why you're here and what it is you have to do, that's when you come into your power, right? So definitely. But I appreciate you asking, doing well. Hope you're doing well too. David, what's going on? David, my brother. Yeah, man, that's my boy David. Glad to see you here, brother. I just reached out to earlier today, Keela. But we're gonna do our thing on Sunday. I'm supposed to do it earlier, but it didn't work out. Something pop up. I hope everything's well with you. If you're still in here, I'm not sure if you're still here. What do we got here? Haunted Lab, or at least I saw that earlier. Yeah, I got to check on that. I flipped the channel. What else we got? Stone, University City, love from Minnesota. Appreciate that. Lucci, what's going on? Kenneth, appreciate you asking. Everything is good. Long time, Zammer. Good to see you on my page. Appreciate that. No, yeah, you ain't been in here in a minute. Hope everything's good with you. All right, so we got a question here from, let's see what Anthony's got a question here. Anthony says, what are your thoughts on how to escape this whole system and not get stuck in the reincarnation cycle? That's a good question. That's a tough question. Depending, let's first start with, because the topic of reincarnation could be a very touchy one. It could be based on different perspectives. Now, I have to answer that part. I can only use based on my experience and understanding. So let me be clear on that. I do believe, obviously, let's start with, and just so other listeners understand, let's be clear on the fact I have embraced, based on through my ritual work, not through just my opinion, not just through from reading books. I, for myself, like many others, have come to the conclusion, and based on your question, I'm sure you have, that we have reincarnated and lived many past lives and have been here before, right? So let's establish that. In order to understand the answer to this question, you must first have to be in alignment that you have come to that understanding in some shape, form, or fashion. And I'm trying to answer the question as a whole too, so others can lock themselves in. So let's establish that rule one. Now, how you escape this system is when you have mastered those low vibrational frequency things that keep you coming back here. So when you stop coming back here, and obviously you'll come to the realization of that at some point in your cycles of transformation, obviously you've now reached that point where you keep coming back here, because you'll hear certain people say in regards to this topic, well, you keep coming back here because there's something still you haven't mastered. There's something still you must learn, this, that, or the third. So there is truth to that to an extent. So how you supersede that and master that and get out of that cycle is when you are here and you're aware. So if you're aware that this is another reincarnation, stop, pause, and ask yourself, what is it you did wrong last time? Or what are some, now correlated to the now, what are some things you're doing now that you're struggling with? So step one is look at all the things that you're struggling with, the things that you have not mastered about yourself. You want to start there. And then once you start there and start working your way out, you start to break that cycle and that change. And then there's not like something that can be put in words to that I can explain verbally, where this is the, in words, how you actually do it. It's a process. And it starts obviously with the awareness part. But it's about freeing yourself from low vibrational frequency energy, right? And what does that mean? That could be, you know, poor decisions you've made, certain individuals that you've attracted that you've allowed in your life, certain situations that you placed yourselves in, certain aspects on a mental level that you may or may not be struggling with, concepts that you've embraced, things that you might still be holding on to that you have not been able to release or shed. So you have to look, it's a very detailed process, and it's a process in the sense that it has to unfold as you do it, and that could be a period of time. But you'll know when the moment comes where you've broken that cycle, you'll know, right? It's just, that's personal for each individual. Obviously, there's no time frame, right? Nobody can say it's going to happen this, that, or the third, or it's going to happen exactly on this date, or it's going to happen exactly in this amount of time, because it's a work in progress. It has to be in a work in progress, because that's why you're here in this moment right now. And that's why the question is being asked. And that's a very good question, right? So that's how you break that cycle. All right. And that's a good comment there by Ultra Instinct. He says he was just speaking to his cousin about that a few hours ago. Whenever I wanted to follow trends as a kid, life wouldn't let me. So I decided that obviously wasn't my path. Well, yeah. I mean, everybody in general in life is not, I mean, you could use that just as a life concept, right? Or when you spend your life trying to follow trends of others, yeah, you become a slave to that shit. And there's a lot of people in the world that's how they live their whole life. That's why there's people, you look with the madness that has evolved over the years with social media. Where do you think people educate themselves? That's why they call it virtual reality. They get stuck in that crap, and look at all the trap. Look, I've said before that these platforms can be used. It's a two-edged sword. These platforms can be used as a productive aspect in regards to, say, something we're doing right now, because you can reach people in that moment in real time, and right, you have the ability to reach multiple people where you couldn't do that years ago, right? But it's also toxic and destructive, because look at all the trash and the garbage and the bullshit that's on there. I mean, the only thing I get out of a lot of those, I could sit and watch comedy videos all day, stupid shit, the funny stuff. But all the toxic hood rat shit and all the ratchet garbage and all that stuff, this is where people are learning and educating. This is why things have become, and people they try to set trends, whether it's through clothing and fashion, hairstyle. I mean, or concept, or whatever is the popular thing. Uh, I liken it back before there was, for an example, and this is a good question, a good topic. I remember in my era when we grew up, obviously we didn't have all the social media or the shit we're bombarded with now. But I remember I went to, and I always say my upbringing was great. The school I went to was great. But high school I went to was everybody was in competition to stay up on the latest shit, especially sneakers. Like in my school, if your sneaker game wasn't tight, you got called out on that shit. Right? I mean, we were the type of cats, we brought the toothbrush with we kept the cleaning kit in the locker. Like, we were so fanatical with our kicks, we couldn't have a speck on them. Right? Whether it was sneakers, clothing, your hairstyle, your jewelry. I remember in my school, it was big. Your shit had to be tight. And if you came to school and you were looking whack, they would let you know, right? In a certain way. I remember that pressure as a teenager. You felt pressure to keep up with that. And I remember I went and got 2 jobs, because in order for me to get the sneakers I wanted, to have the leather jackets in the wintertime, the bombers, the goose downs, you know what I'm saying? The Sherlins, right? I had to have some extra money, because this is what everybody was rocking or wearing at that time. So that trends, whether it's physical trends such as fashion, jewelry, and there can be trends, political trends, religious trends, spiritual trends. Some people are part of spiritual movements because it becomes a popular or a trendy thing. So whether it's spiritual, whether it's physical, whether it's materialistic shit, yes, that's all part of breaking away from this matriarchal system that keeps us locked in to conformity. And once you break those trends and you come to the realization, like you said, that wasn't for you, it never worked for you because that wasn't your path, right? Soon as you came to the realization of that is when the change and the growth starts to come. That doesn't mean, look, doesn't mean like, look, I always encourage people, live your best life. It doesn't mean you can't have materialistic things. I got materialistic things. It doesn't mean you can't have things you enjoy in life. Look, I try to the best of my ability, whether it comes to food, shelter, and clothing, to have the best I can have. Right? So always aim for the best in those areas, but that shouldn't be what your whole life is geared about when it comes to those type of trends. But real quick, before I move on, spiritual trends, that could be dangerous. Because I've seen that over the years where people jump from movement to movement or religion to religion because, one, they're confused, or two, they just keep doing it because they run into something or somebody that's doing it. And then when they get out of it, it's not, igniting their interest like it used to, or it's not the happening thing, then they're going to move on to something else. So trends can be dangerous when you're just following them and you're not really doing it because it's something you're supposed to be doing, but you're doing it because everybody else is doing it. But that's more than likely why you weren't supposed to be following those trends. But good point. Lenora says, I suppose the story of Prometheus being in hell and tortured could refer to the Kundalini fire that is wasted through one's life every day, uncontrolled. Sexual fire as well as wasted. That's a great way to look at it, right? Right? Because as I said before, when you do not know how to control and harness this energy, yes, it can become destructive. Yes, it can devour and destroy you, right? I always say, you hear a lot of people, whether you read it in books or whatever class, that's a big concept on this path, the left-hand path, the devouring part. You must devour this, devour. But I always follow it up with a question that I don't hear people following up with. If you keep devouring and you're taking and taking and taking, my question is, after you're done all the taking that needs to be done or the devouring that needs to be done, what are you replacing it with? That's the reconstruction part. The devouring part is the destruction part. But what are you replacing it with? AKA the reconstruction part. So yes, when you could look at that story in regards to, yes, that has to happen, right? Okay. The destructive part has to happen. And as I said earlier, when I was referring to wasting your time, we hear this term wasting our time and energy on things, that concept becomes even more, it grows even stronger within you. Yes, you do not have the time or the energy to waste things. And when you do, okay, or you're wasting things that are igniting your downfall, your destruction, that's where some of the painful aspects of the growth and the change come in. Remember, I've always said for years, what really karma simply is, I know people spook it out, comes around, goes around, they turn it into this spooky bullshit. Really, karma is based on the law of cause and effect. And your choices and decisions is what creates your karma. Okay? Because every choice and decision you make in life has a cause and effect. And based on that cause and effect is the energy that will be a manifestation of that. That's all karma is. Okay? Long story short, I use these analogies many times over the years. If the weekend's here and there's a spot that's popping, but a lot of bad shit takes place there, fights, shootouts, right? But you make a conscious decision because there's fine ass women there, you go, but it's a very negative place, shit can pop off. And if it does, then that you created that karma. What? Based on the choice and the decision you made. Okay? Let me even make it more simplified for you. Some people struggle with making decisions with spending, right? Some people will spend money that they don't have, and there's repercussions of that later, right? So let's just say, use something simple. You go to the mall and you see something you want, and you might have the money right now on you to get it, but you can't really afford to dish out that money. And you say, "Oh, fuck it, I'm gonna go ahead and get it." Right? And then your mortgage is due in 3 days, and then all of a sudden you ain't got the money for your mortgage. That's the karma. You made a bad decision. Right? That's it. People spook it out and say, "What it is." No, it's simple. Law of cause and effect. That's all. Yeah. To Anthony's question, what happens when you're older and you don't have the desire for anything sexual anymore? Well, that could be related to a multitude of reasons. First and foremost, you have to start with the physical aspect. Could be something wrong, with on a physical level. That drive or that desire could not be there. It could be stress, anxiety. Especially for a man, decreased levels of testosterone will definitely cause that, 150%. So I would look in those areas first. Some people just get consumed with life and levels of stress and anxiety, just completely devour and smother all of that desire or energy for that. But I always would encourage, male or female, I would always check physically first, because there could be something going on in that department or that area. But for men, if you do your research, you will find that 99.9% of the time is linked to testosterone levels. So we as men, as we grow, the older we get, those levels decrease, right? And it's important. Exercise is very important, for that. Now, one thing I learned in regards to that, I was one who used to do excess cardio because I thought that was a good thing to do. Now I found out, as you get older as a man, when you do excess cardio, that, believe it or not, you could Google this, that reduces your testosterone levels even more. I didn't know that. So I found out, as you get older, you don't really need, there's other areas that compensate for that in exercise, whether it's weightlifting, or there's other alternatives, but you do incorporate some level of cardio. But I was not aware of that, and I was one who was doing an hour, sometimes of cardio every day. Now I could still hit an hour, maybe every other day or 2 days, or then I do 30-minute intervals. But exercise is important for that. So long story short, I would look at the physical aspect, and then I don't know what's going on in your personal life. That could be creating high levels of stress and anxiety. That's usually a killer for that too, right? So always start with the physical first, then go to the mental aspect of it, and then usually you'll be able to draw your conclusions, because you have to change the way you feel first in order to reverse that process, if that's the goal, right? That's important, right? So I would look at your T levels, 100%. All right, what else we got? So Menora says, lately I've been working on this file, so interesting. I click on. After a long time we are talking on it, noticed a crazy increase to the drive, but also more accountability and self-discipline. And that's the important thing, right? Accountability and self-discipline. Because this too, hold on, let me grab my water. Sorry about that. Yeah, again, back to the accountability and the discipline. That's important. Again, as I said earlier, suppressing it, that can be just as bad or destructive as having no discipline. So it's that old saying, you got to seek a means in between. So, especially when it comes to sexual energy, it's a very well, not so much now because now it depends on certain circles. But it's an area in people's lives, and especially outside of the occult, left hand path. It's not really addressed properly, especially going back years. It's always been something that's been we've always been misinformed about, right? But on the occult and the left hand path, it's very important for us to embrace our sexual energy and our power and understand it, right? It's important to a degree with discipline and accountability, as you described, to be able to indulge and appease our desires and satisfy them, but not to the point where we have no discipline and we're reckless and it devours us, right? So I always tell people, first understand what what your sexual energy is and what your power is and what your desires are. And then two, you always formulate an approach that's going to work for you, whatever that is, right? Because this is not something that is addressed or touched on, in my opinion, on a wide scale level, where it's something that people need to master and understand. Because if it's not, the sexual energy can be a very destructive force. Just like anything else, whether that's food or drugs, it can become addicting. Right. It can become an aspect of somebody's life that, because of that lack of discipline, he or she can go down a destructive path. Now, I've always talked about this with Lilith, as I've said before, more so for men than women. Not saying it can't happen to women, but I've watched a lot of men who maybe came into working with Lilith with already, they might have had very strong, undisciplined sex drives, right? I've seen this happen where it got even worse, out of control. And I've seen vice versa, where they came in and they didn't, but then they tapped in on a level where they didn't know how to discipline or control it when it comes to that aspect and the nature of it. Um, but it is a powerful driving force to us on this path. There, it really, in essence, when you look at all the infernals, and when you look and look, it's not just what we know on the surface with a lot of these female deities who are locked into the sexual energy. It's all of them. There's a sexual energy aspect to all of this when you truly understand it. But what I have noticed, and myself included, it increases the passion and the drive. I can tell you, I'll be 54 next month, and there's no there's no slowing down in any shape, form, or fashion. I can tell you that, and that's a good thing. So, and it's not to I think it was Anthony's question earlier that was asking that. Doesn't mean it doesn't mean because, I just want to make sure, was that Anthony? Yeah. So let me be clear to Anthony's question. In a case someone who may not have that drive or desire, that's why I was saying it could be maybe something physical or medical going on, right? But I know a lot of people who are locked in to a certain degree and maybe don't have something like that really going on. Usually those levels are high. But again, I can tell you as men, and this is a very common thing that comes up. There's a lot of men who present that what Anthony just presented, and women too. Now with women, it's usually more of a hormone thing, right? It's hormone levels. But I'm not going to sit there and act like I understand that whole process, because a woman could probably tell you better. But same thing, you have to factor in stress levels, anxiety, uh, things that's going on in a person's life. Women too, you will see sometimes the decrease and the increase could be going up and down, giving birth to children, life changes, right? All of that affects that to a degree, right? But I can tell you, answering it from a male perspective, I can tell you T levels or testosterone levels are usually 99.9% of the reason why the drive or the desire. So I would always tell you or anybody else, check your T levels, take supplements, like nitrous oxide is a great T boost, T testosterone level booster. That's a great supplement. Do your research on supplements that can increase your T levels, foods that increase your T levels, and maybe it brings back that drive and desire. But it could be a combination of factors. And then in relation to the second part of Laura's question, again, Indulge, but indulge with reason, accountability, discipline, because that's important too, right? And that, that level of how one is to do it within reason, and to indulge with discipline, that's going to vary on the person, right? But yes, part of this path is embracing your sexual energy, right? Not suppressing it. I don't do no Diddy shit though, but no. What happened there? Oh, how'd that come? What the hell? Why'd that turn green? There we go. So Anthony says, I had to live in my car for 3 years while being publicly humiliated and got beat up going through shadow cells. Wow, that's not good. Yeah, well, that obviously, if you've been through that type of stuff, I can see why that would be a strong explanation of why that's probably just not at your top of your list. So that answers a lot right there. That could definitely be a strong part of that. All right, what else we got? Let's see what this says more. Move up here. It says everything's accelerated. Oh, in reference to what we talked about earlier. Time, people's illusions falling away, and the progress you can make if you stay focused. It's true indeed. True indeed. Adult art design. What's going on? Yeah, it has been a long time. Yeah, so as well, just a lot of change, personal art, hermit mode. Yeah, I got you. So Jose said, I think we just kind of answered that. As a Luciferian practitioner myself, working to grow on this path, is your opinion okay for someone like me to go to clubs? Well, it's not my opinion. Of course, it's okay for you to go once a week, or whatever. It's not a matter of once a week, 10 times a week. It's understanding yourself and doing it within discipline, right? It's we can do whatever we want as long. I mean, there's three things. Always remember this. There's three simple, as I like to call them, golden rules you live by. As long as you're not doing things to harm yourself or others in a destructive way, you have to decide within reason. So if you're a person who likes to go out and hang out at clubs or this, that, and the third, uh, do it again. It could be, we can use the same analogy with sexual energy. Do it within reasoning, indulge with discipline. Now, it's real simple. How you know you're out of control with it is if it's affecting other aspects of your life. Now, if that's all that you do. I'm not saying you do. I'm just saying, I'm using an example. If you're a person that's going to clubs every weekend and it's draining all your money and you're getting drunk and fucked up and pissing all your money away, then now that's a telltale sign. It's time to wake the fuck up and get your shit in order. But yeah, there ain't nothing wrong with going out once a week, this, that, and the third, to have some fun, enjoy life. Most definitely. Like, I'm more at the stage in my life. I'm not really into that club stuff, like loud music type shit. I'm just not really into that no more. One, I'm just past that stage. I'm too old. But I do like to go to comedy clubs, right? Down here where I'm at, we have the improvs. We have 3 improvs in the 3 major counties: Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And we have the top comedians coming down through here throughout the year. So one thing I love to do, I love to go nice comedy club. I just love the vibe in there. It's just a way for me to go out and get some good entertainment. Like I say, I'm a season ticket holder for the Florida Panthers. So I go to the Panther games. It's another, you got to have interest, that there has to be some of that entertainment aspect in your life. So, sports, and then, sports. I'll go catch certain artists, good music, concert in the right environment, etc. Matter of fact, I don't think she's on here tonight. Matter of fact, what was it? Tuesday, they just had come down here. Raven went. They had Billy, believe it or not, Billy Idol and Joan Jett touring. and they were just down here at Amaret Bank Arena. I couldn't go, but she went, so it was an awesome show. So I like to, if I see like some of them old school artists, whether it's hip hop or some old school musicians like that back in the day, it's awesome. You know, it's awesome to go and indulge in those things within reason. You got to have that aspect of your life. Look, everything is not just about being spiritual and this, that, and the third. Everything is not about that, right? Some people don't know how to, quote unquote, you have to live your life, right? Some people play this, I'm spiritual 20 all the time. Everything is spiritual, this, that, and the third. And it's not. You got to break up your life in those. There's a time to play and have fun and entertain yourself. There's a time where you got to lock in and do your ritual work. There's a time where you just need to rest and recuperate and rejuvenate. That all that process there is about, about understanding yourself. Okay. All of that is about truly understanding yourself. And then when you have that understanding, you're able to make those decisions. So long story short, without rambling on about it, of course it's okay to go once a week. That's what you do. And it's not interfering in other aspects of your life in a destructive manner. That's all. It's that simple. All right. All right. Joel, thank you for the donation. All right, what else we got? Mel and Night Mandy, do you? I do sometimes. Like one place I like to go. Obviously, being down here in South Florida, we have the beaches everywhere. My favorite time to do it is at night on the beach. There's a certain ambiance on a clear night, and especially if the moon is out and it's reflecting on the water and just the sound of the ocean, being in the sand. It's just a feeling of having your shoes off and just having your feet entrenched in the sand. So I definitely like to do meditations at beaches. We've even done some sunrise rituals with Ra at the beach in the past over the years. Yeah, most definitely. I've also, when I go to the Indian mounds, especially Ocmulgee Mound in Macon, Georgia, I've liked several times I've done it in the past is on the ritual mound and the funeral mound. I'll go to the top of it and just meditate. And especially if you get a nice, cool, sunny day, you can tap into the energy of that. So yes, most definitely. If you have, I would encourage anybody that has the ability to have. Also, we've done. I've done by myself, and we've done also. We have some really nice parks here that are entrenched in natural nature things. So we've done some stuff at the parks. I sometimes will go there occasionally. So most definitely, yes. And I think that's a good thing to do if you have the ability to do it. I don't do it a lot. When I get the chance to, I try to do it when I can. Maniac Mitchell says, are people getting caught up in the clip up because they aren't flipping the Sephira like Hod is shown on the left when it should be on the right? And also the black pill on the left is correct. Well, people can get caught up in the clip hop, period. Right? That could be one of the reasons. But there's a multitude of other reasons why I see people get caught up in the clip hop. One is lack of understanding how the cliffs work. One is lack of understanding when you're opening the door. Remember, those are like portals and gateways. And you are opening up yourself and exposed. Not understanding the proper placement, like you described, definitely is one of the reasons, that one of many. But I find out what typically people get caught up in is lack of understanding of what those cliffs are. Remember, at each cliff, you have a certain deity that guards the gate to that cliff. And to really master the cliff path, you must understand and master the deities that guard the entrance to those cliffs, right? And I find, for an example, what we like to call on the cliff the dispersion of the black raven, right? I find whether it's that or getting through the throne of Damuel, right? Getting to that throne of Lucifer and having that understanding and knowing how the cliffs work and how each opening to those cliffs operate is, I think, where people struggle. And I go through this in the clip podcast. We're going through each one individual, literally. Okay. And we started from the bottom. We started from ground I'm going to show you something for an example. Hold on. This will help understand it. And I know some people that may be in here are in the clip pod class. So what we're doing, and I'm taking literally step by step. So the lowest realm on the bottom, where you'll, as I said, 10 to 11th, I've always told people that's Lilith, who guides with the assistance of Naama, who guides the individual through the Sitra Akra into the void. So when you look on the clip path, if you look at the tree, I know you may not be able to see it because of the background. You'll see at the bottom, the 10th clip, that's where it starts with Lilith. And I'll show you why I'm saying this. Well, I'll show you why I'm going through this real quick. So it goes from the 10 to the 1. Remember, we go 10 and work its way back, right? So as we know, it starts with going through Lilith, right? And then working your way as you're going through these different clips, you'll see then it's the gates of Naama, etc. So it's the 10. What I'm trying to say is, I think where people get stuck or caught up, because for an example, somebody had asked this question one time: can you jump around? Do you have to go in order? Can you go through random cliffs? The answer is yes and no. And the reason why I had answered it like that, and I say the answer is yes and no, it depends on the practitioner, where they're at in their growth and their studies, and if they've had experiences with the clip path before, and they understand the placements. I have seen where they get locked in and connected, and they can randomly jump all over the place. That only applies, in my opinion, in certain situations and scenarios that dictate that. But like in your question with the placement, yes, that comes from a lack of understanding, right? If you have that understanding, that wouldn't and shouldn't happen, in my opinion. But it can happen. So yes, it's one of the many reasons why people get caught up. But then the guardians of the gate, they get fucked up with that, right? And then we haven't even touched on the tunnels of set, which that opens the doors to other things. But yes, it can be to that, the flipping of the Sephir as you described, etc. Now, I've also encouraged people to get a good understanding too. You should, because then this other question comes. In order to have a good understanding of stuff like that and the clip off, should I have or should I study the Kabbalistic tree or the Kabbalah? You should, right? I'm not saying you need to go, be some, well, it's up to you, but you should have an understanding of the Kabbalistic tree, because that's going to help you too. But some people don't even have that and they struggle. So yes. That's a good question. Ultra Instant says, anything I see trending now, I immediately steer away. Yeah, I mean, there's some bullshit. I mean, there's some crazy shit out there, man. There's some, especially when it comes to trends, clothes. There's some weird shit out there right now, man. Be you. That's what makes you unique. We all got to embrace who and what we are. And see, that's the problem with this world we live in now. Everybody wants to be everything other than themselves. Right. And that's why I keep saying that training yourself and understanding yourself is important, because people spend their lives in that illusionary aspect of themselves. Right. They want to, portray themselves to be something they're not. They want people to see them as, That's all that trendy shit. That's all that shit is about. Any questions in here? I don't see any questions on the TikTok. I know there's not too many people on the TikTok. If you got a question, type it in. If I see it, I'll try to answer it. And that's a good statement by FLAST8. Yes. What we're calling time anyway, right? It's something no one should ever waste. You can never get it back. It's true. And that statement becomes even more powerful to you as you get older. And I know that what we're calling time, I just don't have I don't have the energy, because there's energy invested in time too. I just don't have the time and energy to waste no more. I've been at that point. It's crazy. 'Cause that conversation comes up a lot, right? I've steered away from a lot of bullshit and things that waste my time, right? Because I don't want nothing to do with that no more. You can't get it back. All right. Yeah, the slacking part. That's a good question, John. The slacking part, 100%. The slacking part, that I've talked about that in the past. Managing your time, or what we're calling time, is critical. It's important. I go through periods of that off and on. I'm guilty of that too. It's tough, depending on your lifestyle situation has a lot to do with that, right? There's some of us who work many hours in a day, and we're doing different. I know me, I'm doing different projects from early in the morning, whether it's my professional work life, my personal stuff. I'm doing all this in simultaneous through the course of the day. And there's sometimes I walk in that door. I mean, literally, just give you an example. And I'm not making an excuse, because, like I tell you guys, there's no excuse. A typical day for me would be getting up. Pretty much, this is Sunday to Thursday. Friday, Saturday are like really the only 2 days I can sleep, to an extent. Sunday, I'll get up early, doing my regular job, work, profession, career that I do. In between, through the course of the day, I'm booking clients. I might even squeeze some readings in between when I'm in my office. Then 3-4 days a week, I leave my job and I go straight to the rink. I'm spending 2 hours at the rink, because my son's got to skate 3-4 times a week. And by the time it is 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I'm up, ripping and running from 4:35, 5:30 in the morning to 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I get in the house. As soon as I sit down, sometimes I'm guilty. I don't want to do shit. Right? Because it's a mental thing. Right? But I've come up with a system where I know how I was able to combat the slacking. I know Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'm not going to fool myself. It's not a good day for me to really do any ritual stuff. I try to avoid it, because I already know those are the first 3 days of the week are the most heaviest and busiest days. So I know Thursday to Sunday, and this is based on, I'm saying, to really, the key to working with your slack is to understand your lifestyle and your schedule, your personal life and your schedule, and find ways to get locked in and motivate yourself. So, for an example, it becomes problematic. It's one thing if you've had a long day, and this happens. That's why Monday and Tuesday, Wednesday are super long days for me. I'm not gonna fool myself to try to do too much. But when you got the time, let's just say, I'm not saying this is you, but let's just say you're a person who does have the time, and you're just slacking, wasting it away. Yes, that laziness, that can be a destructive pattern. And sometimes there's not nothing in particular, like some ritual hocus pocus poof you could do to fix that. You got to kind of psych yourself out. So, for an example, I know I have to do this to myself. Times I've trained my subconscious mind. If I come in and I'm supposed to do something, I'm set, I turn something on, the TV's on, and then it's something I try to avoid, that I'm going to run into something that's going to captivate my attention, especially sports. And if I do turn it on, I train myself to say, I got to cut the TV off. I got to go do what I got to do. Stick to my plan. Start repetitively saying to yourself the things you need to do to reverse that process, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen right away, but yes, I'm glad you bring that up because slacking or being lazy and wasting your time can be a very destructive habit, right? It's a good question. You know what? I'm glad you bring it up, Anthony. It's funny. I was thinking about reaching out. It's been a while, and that show we did was good. So it's funny you bring that up. Um, I was going to reach out to him, and I keep saying I want to get with Dr. Bynum, see if I can get him back on there. It's just sometimes shit just comes up. We'll see if we can make that happen. Ultra into Billy, yeah, Billy. Believe it or not, Billy Idol is still touring, and again, from the feedback I got from Raven, and she said Joan Jett sounded incredible. You know what's crazy? A lot of those artists from back in our era. I met my sister loved Billy Idol, man. I just like some of his music. It's good. Eyes Without a Face, White Wedding. He had some classic, Big Beat. Probably one of the most sampled rap tracks. That's a Billy Idol song. There's a beat that was used through hip hop from the 80s up to this present day. That's Big Beat. A lot of people don't know that was sampled. That was sampled off of Billy. You know how many artists use Big Beat? Big Beat was used probably a gazillion times if you know music. Sometimes a lot of those classic rock artists they had some of the best samples. But the reason why they stay around and stay relevant, you gotta remember that was an area where there was real musicians. These are people that wrote music, still do, and play instruments. These motherfuckers coming out today, they're on auto tune. The technology with all the studio equipment, you could take somebody with a shitty voice, put them on auto tune, and it sounds, I guess, to a degree, halfway decent. But these are singers, man. These are people that could actually sing, play instruments, and write music. That's why people like Billy Idol, Stevie Wonder. I mean, look at Patti LaBelle for an example. She's been around for eons, and she sounds just as good now. And I believe she's in her 70s now, very early 70s, I believe. She sounds just as good now as she did in her prime, right? These are the people that stay around for generations because they write music. Why you see a lot of these, what they're calling, I don't even know if we can call them musicians or artists, musical artists, is why they all flash in the pants. I mean, we went from that to Sexy Red. Like, really? Really? So now you can just parade around being ignorant. No, I'm not hating on it. Look, you make your money, make your money. If making your money being a skank and hoeing, if that's and singing about that, hey, knock yourself out. Hey, I don't blame her. I think the people that listen to that shit are more ignorant than her. But hey, if it's what's selling, it's what popping. She making her money. Do your thing. You know what I'm saying? But let's not call those people musical artists. They're not. Okay. So you gotta understand that I mean, you take artists that they're not relying on equipment and drum machines and programming and computers to make their music. These are individuals that sit down, they write music, right? Who knows? I mean, I remember learning it in school years ago. I couldn't even tell you now. Who knows? No artist sits down and writes music no more. But that's why the artists like that, like I said, Raven said the show was amazing. I know her cousin flew in here visiting. They went together, and it said it was a good show. They're still around. These old school artists still around. Johnny Wolf says, I'm originally from Vancouver Island. And I'm way up north now. Miss the beach, but I like hiking and nature type stuff every night. Yeah, it's nice. Trails too. I like walking trails. We have some of those here. I've been in some in other states. I was just in Denver, Colorado, a couple of weeks ago. My son had a hockey tournament there. There was a nice walking trail we hit there while we were there. So yeah, I mean, just getting out there and connected with the elements of nature. It's just a certain relaxing vibe. Like we got some really nice parks here too in South Florida. And one thing I like to do is I just get I put in my earbuds and I got a lot of like I don't know if you want to call it spiritual music, but a lot of great walking music on a spiritual level. I could walk with Native American music, etc. So yeah, there's so many different ways to connect on that aspect that I think is very uplifting and enlightenment for, inner enlightenment for your spirit. Hey, whatever helps you and you feel like makes you grow, whatever practices you incorporate in your spiritual path that work for you, do it. And if that's one thing for you and anybody else, do it, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So I see your follow up to that, maniac. Yeah. Like I say, you know, and I know you couldn't see it on the thing. My recommendation is as you start, obviously it starts with Lilith on that clip art. When you look at the clip art, the tree at the bottom, where you see labeled with the X, the 10 spot, you start your way up there and you work your way through the cliffs and understand each being that guards that cliff. Because always understand the way the cliff set up, the two that rule, Samael is at the top. He's navigating because you're trying to get to that throne of Daniel. You're trying to get right to your goal is to ascend to that top, but you have to have a thorough understanding of both of the trees, in my opinion. But you have to have a thorough understanding as you go through each. When you're opening Belphegor is another one I see people get fucked up with because they misunderstand and not really clear on how Belphegor works, and we've talked about that. And I think this one here is another one. The one I wanted to point out that I forgot. I'm not seeing this here. This becomes crazy. Hold on. Yeah, I think it. Yeah, that Garyon because in relation to Belphegor. The reason why I bring it up because that where I say people get stuck there is because that cliff is about balance and harmony, right? And so what I'm saying is, so this is right after when you work your way from Lilith. This is in the very early stages of the cliff. See, this is one of, in my opinion, from feedback from people, their experiences, etc. I think when you don't master that clip and there's strong connotations of balance and harmony, if you fucking depart from that and not master that and you don't have that harmony and that balance, man, as you continue the journey through the cliffs, I've seen it become very extremely difficult for people past that point. Now, we did the class on that on the Patreon, a very thorough class of understanding that cliff and the importance of it moving forward. Because we always talk about in general on this path about having balance and harmony, right? Now, I personally have always taught for years, they're not exactly the same thing. They're connected, right? You gotta have both. See, balance, when people say you need to balance things out, when things are balanced out, there's an aspect of stagnation and stillness. But when things are in harmony, they're constantly flowing and moving, but in a harmonious frequency. So understanding that clip of Thagarion in connection to Belphegor is important because when the individual has gone through that cliff and done their ritual work, whether it's Klipothic meditations or specific ritual work, you should now have a thorough understanding. We went over this in depth in that class. You should have a thorough understanding and grasp of what true balance and harmony is. Because if you proceed forward from that cliff, not mastering that aspect, I've seen that's where people start to get swallowed up. And I always ask them when they say, hey, as I was proceeding through the clip, they could tell me halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, I went through some really fucking crazy shit because such and such. I'll always refer them back to that second one. And I'll say, well, let me ask you a question. that clip with that Garion go? How did that go? Let's talk about that. Alphago. Let's talk about balance. Let's talk about, there's a lot of factors in there, right? Oh, I love 80s. Man, let me tell you something, man. I'll throw some 80s soft rock at you. Look, when I tell you I know, look, I listen to music, I can give you some. I mean, depending on what you label, soft rock, but you could take a lot of even some, I mean, back in the 80s, like I love like Daryl Hall and John Oates. Awesome shit. Right. It's amazing how many hits they had. I find myself listening to their greater hits. Now, even some, they may not so-called be labeled like pop rock, like Old Culture Club is awesome. Fucking, I mean, you can go to a lot of those eras, and you can get into some of those depending on some of the artists that you label from that era. I don't even know if soft rock. I don't even know if soft rock is a category anymore. But man, you have so many bands from back then or artists from back then that I guess you fall into that category. I mean, '80s had some good ones. Throw some. I mean, he was a 1-800. I don't know why Rick Springfield just came to my head. That's crazy. I mean, there's so many bands. Air Supply, right? I don't know. I guess you would label him in that category. Air Supply, for those, I'm going back to the 8. I'm dating myself. I think Air Supply was one of the most talented bands from back in the 80s. I don't know if the Police would fall in that category. They're kind of in between. But when I think of soft rock, I think of groups like Air Supply definitely would fall, in my opinion anyway, would fall under that category. And I mean, they put out some fucking classics, man. I remember I used to play the shit out of that album when I was a kid. I had that first, it was the first or the second Air Supply album. I had that shit on vinyl. Man, just play that shit on my record player. But yeah, man, music is an integral part of your life, man, on a multitude of levels, man. I love music. I mean, I listen to all kinds of shit, man. That's part of my upbringing. And that's why one of the reasons I love going to the gym, because I get that hour and a half where I'm locked in and I got my music. I got playlists, man. You don't know. I got playlists galore. I don't even know what the radio is. I haven't even turned on the radio in I don't know how many years. That's been the blessing of these musical apps. Like I got the Amazon Music app with my Prime app. Amazon Music, for the most part, there's nothing you can't find on over there. When I tell you I got playlists, I'm literally not exaggerating. Thousands of songs. It's crazy. I can find pretty much. There you go. Now you're naming some good. Journey is fucking classic. Foreigner, the Four album. That whole album is a classic. Urgent, is classic. Jukebox Hero, man. Now you're bringing up some Foreigner. I had the Foreigner 4 album on vinyl. Jukebox Hero was my favorite song. That fucking beat. Oh my God. Yes. So now you're bringing some quote unquote soft rock artists out. Yeah, they were all good bands. Those are all good groups right there. Right, all those groups you name. Journey, Steve Perry. Believe it or not, Journey's still touring, but not obviously with Steve Perry. I hate when I hear all these bands have a falling out. Phil Collins, Genesis. Now you can't forget Phil, and Genesis was a good. Again, I don't know if we put the Police in that category. I don't know. I guess they would kind of be in that category. Now I had the privilege and Rush, right? Can't forget Rush. I had the privilege of seeing Police and Rush live back in, I'm going to say that was 82, 83. And one of the best drummers is Neil Peart. If you don't know who Neil Peart is, if you're not a Rush fan, or you don't know who Rush is. Rush, too, that's another band. REO Speedwagon. Shit, you got me thinking about all those groups from back then. But that was one of the best concerts I ever went to, was the Police and Rush. And Stuart Copeland, who played drums for the Police, probably at that era, him and Neil Peart were probably two of the best drummers you ever see live. Yeah, Rush is fucking classic, man. Come on. I mean, damn. Tom Sawyer. Like, who the fuck? I mean, you don't like Tom Sawyer, something wrong with you, man. But yeah, Rush was an awesome band. I guess that's what we call soft rock. I would more consider a lot of those classic rock. I mean, I guess like Led Zeppelin. That's more, I guess we would label as. I love classic rock. 70s rock bands off the chain. Love fucking 70s rock. Even there's some southern rock bands that were off the chain. 38 Special, right? 38 Special's classic. Charlie Daniels Band. Shit, I can run through all those motherfuckers, man. Shit. Devil Went Down to Georgia. Shit. Classic. Right? That was real music, man. But yeah, Neil Peart blew me away. Now that goes back to the era. See, Neil Peart, remember how some of the bands, Neil Peart had 2 drum sets, right? Stuart Copeland too in some of the setups. Some of those real good drummers, they play 2 drum sets simultaneously. It fucking blow you away when you see a real drummer play. And obviously Phil Collins, right? Phil Collins, people don't realize outside his vocals, that's what he was known for. He was a drummer. And Phil Collins he was fucking badass drummer, man. But then you get into bands there's more 80s bands, 70s, 80s, AC/DC. You know, and that's getting more towards geared towards the 80s. Metal era was off the fucking chain. Yeah, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, like Iron Maiden, classic. Iron Maiden is one of my favorite metal bands. I still listen to them in the gym. Awesome shit. But AC/DC, man. AC/DC has banger after banger. I mean, I could listen to AC/DC, some Get Amp music. They play that Thunderstruck. That's my son's team's hockey song. They play a lot of AC/DC music when they enter the ring. It gets them amped up. Back in Black, classic. God, that's some good music. They don't make shit like that no more. Yeah, the hair metal bands, Motley Crue. Let me tell you, the first 3 Motley Crue albums. I know I got a little commercial after that, but that second Motley Crue album is fucking classic, man. Classic. I mean, old Motley Crue was off the fucking chain. Obviously, Kiss had a chance to finally see them in their last year. They were touring 23. They actually came down here, West Palm Beach Amphitheater. I posted it, some of the clips a couple of years. It's still on the Instagram. Let me tell you something. Again, you take guys like that have been touring since the early 70s. Them motherfuckers sound just as good live as they did in this era that they did back then. I mean, that show that they put on, I'm glad I got to see them on one of their shows on the farewell tour. That last show they put on, amazing. Amazing. It puts all these bullshit that's out here now to shame. That was one of the best shows I had seen in a while. I mean, my God, that shit was off the chain. It was a good experience. I'm glad I was able to catch them before they hung it up. Oh yeah, Flo's about to rock. We said Agnes Young, man. I'm telling you, man. That's it. They don't have bands like that no more, man. Listen to that shit. Don't get me started on the 80s. Ronnie James, I love Dio. I prefer Ozzy was good with Black Sabbath, but I always geared towards Ronnie James Dio more. I thought he was one of the best metal vocalists at that time. He had one of the best voices. Even his solo shit is off the chain. Dio solo shit is off the chain, man. I got that on my 80s playlist. Yeah, man. 80s metal bands, man. That was a fucking era that was a whole nother different era. All right. Other than that, I do not. Oh, now I saw Fleetwood Mac. Who typed in Fleetwood Mac? Where did I see Fleetwood Mac? I just scrolled. Where the fuck was that? Oh, there it is. ABBA. Oh shit. God damn. I forgot about ABBA. Fleetwood Mac is classic, man. Fleetwood Mac is oh man. Forget it. I mean, the Stevie Nicks, man. Even her solo shit is off the chain. Pat Benatar, right? I don't know why she just came to mind. I don't think it's all popping in my head now. But man, there's some good music. Some good Sheena Easton. Why the fuck did she just come to my head? Crazy. This weird shit, man. Not weird in a bad way, but yeah. I know every generation probably says that, but it's hard for me to fathom how this generation can go. Yeah, man, Drake. Classic. Sexy Red. Classic. And I just don't see it, man. I'm sorry. I don't see it. This is tough for me to even fathom that. All right, but listen, I'm gonna wrap this up. I think that'll do it. I stayed on probably a little longer than I wanted to. Old change. So you did. Oh, you got to see Fleetwood Mac. Now, I always wanted to see Phil. Now I'm gonna give you guys a jewel. You can find it if you Google it. There's an album of it's the Police is on there. Phil Collins. It's called The Secret Policemen's of the Ball. If you haven't heard that album, it was slept on. It came out in the 80s. There's a song Phil did on there. The Roof is Leaking. Check that album out. That's a classic. Slept on album from the 80s. The Secret Policemen's of the Ball. Remember I told you, if you haven't heard it, go check it out. All right. Other than that, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll try to get on here when I'm able to next time to do a live. Hey, man, everybody stay up. I hope everybody navigates through the rest of this year to the best of their ability. So all those that are, dealing with their shit, deal with it. Work your way through it. Hey, Brother Anthony, hopefully you keep working your way through your stuff. Everybody else in here, if there's other people dealing with things, stay up. Let's just get ourselves flowing through this, man. All right. I appreciate everybody. Infernal blessings. We'll talk soon.